Back here in the Photography Show TV studio, sponsored by Manfrotto, I'm honoured to be joined by Michael Kenna, who you're going to be speaking on the big stage tomorrow, aren't you?
I am indeed, yes, if I can find it.
If you can find it, don't worry, I'm sure
this
somebody...
This is quite a jungle.
It's a huge show. Have you had a chance to have a look around it so far?
No, I got here literally 10 minutes ago.
Oh, well,
yes.
Thank you so much for rushing to see us. Now, so tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock, I think.
11 o'clock, yes.
And just give us a flavour of what you're going to be talking about, Michael.
Well, essentially, I've been photographing for 40 years. I don't. And when I started, it was very different than it is now. Of course,
yeah.
We had our little cameras. We went into the darkroom. We processed film. If something had to be retouched, you'd spend all night with your little retouching brush and your scalpel blade and so forth.
Very manual.
It's
kind
very,
of
very
visceral,
different. Yes. And so, if I wander around here, I don't recognize 99% of the technology. Essentially, I've very much stayed in the way that I worked, 30, 40 years ago.
And do you find that has? I guess you haven't found that it's held you back, but I guess a photographer entering the profession now would have a very different technical approach maybe to their work than you would have, because this is a photography show, but a lot of the stuff that we're seeing here is technology based, whereas that's not your background.
It's not my background at all. My background is in the arts, in painting and drawing and so forth. I think it would take a steep learning curve at this point for me to see what is happening, to understand what is happening. It's way beyond me at this point.
Just talk us through, if you will, some of your journey, because you're UK born, but you moved stateside a number of years ago now, and how has that worked with your photography career?
Well, I was born and brought up in England, the north of England, Widnes. Then I went on to a seminary school. I thought I'd become a Catholic priest. Certain point I decided that wasn't so great, and I moved to an art school, Banbury School of Art, and then into photography. I studied photography for 3 years, and I essentially became a commercial photographer. At the same time, running alongside parallel was my absolute passion and conviction that I really liked to be in the landscape. I wanted to photograph the landscape. I wanted to photograph the urban landscape. And for many years, I did both. I essentially did my hobby, which was landscape photography. I did my profession, which was commercial photography.
Yep.
At some point, I was able to merge the two. At some point,
we all have bills to pay, after all.
Yes, we do. At some point, most of the commercial photography got left behind, and I became a commercial landscape photographer working in the fine arts, essentially.
And any particular landscapes that you find that you enjoy capturing the most?
For the first half of my career, I would say that I was a European photographer, and the second half, I'm an Asian photographer. I started going to Japan in the mid-80s.
Okay.
It greatly changed the way that I saw things. I started...
In what way?
Well, first of all, things are, right to left instead of left to right.
Yes.
I would often be up in the north of Japan, which is very stark, very white, blizzard-like, and my images became very, very graphic, almost Zen-like. They reflected, in some ways, the kanji characters of the ink, the ink paintings that the Japanese do.
And in terms of your work, colour versus black and white, you work quite a lot in black and white, if I'm right.
I would say 99.9% in black and white. Occasionally I've done colour work for commercial reasons.
Right. But out of
for my
choice,
own work.
Black and white, why is that?
I personally find it more mysterious. It simplifies the forms. It's more malleative. You can go into the darkroom and you can print things. You can use the medium almost like sculpture.
Yeah.
Somehow I've always found colour, for me personally, to be correct or not correct.
Okay.
I worked commercially as a colour printer, and a slight cyan, slight magenta tinge, and it was not right.
Right.
Black and white, you can get away with anything.
I like the first word that you came up with, and you find black and white more mysterious. Is mystery is maybe not fully resolving the picture, telling 1,000 words, but not all of the words important to you?
Personally, I've always felt that photography for me was an interpretation. It was a dialogue. It was a conversation. It was not representing what was out there in full detail. So, I made that allusion to Japanese kanji characters. I also allude to haiku poetry, where a few elements suggest a great deal. They leaves a lot of space for the imagination of the viewer, essentially, who comes in and finishes the photograph. Mm-hmm. There is me, the photographer, there is the subject matter that's going on. Yeah. There's the technology, which for me is not overly important, and then there is the viewer. The viewer has to complete that triangle for me.
Yeah. interesting thinking about that as a triangle. I'd never thought of it like that before until now, but yeah, absolutely right. And finally, just tell me about the work that that you're working on at the moment. What sort of stuff are you engaging in photographically right now?
Again, because I've been doing it so long, I think I'm not wrapping up projects, but I'm extending projects. So,
Okay.
my latest work was basically a book on France, and it covered, 30 years of photographing. My next book this fall is on Japan, and it covers also 30 years of photographing. So I continue what I'm doing. I extend out. When I give a slide talk, there'll be many different subject areas that I will cover.
Yeah.
But I essentially continue in the work that I'm doing.
Listen, Michael, absolutely fascinating. Finally, if I may, you're going to be here for the full day, I guess tomorrow, and we're talking about technology on the floor here. If there's a single piece of technology, given your background of more manual photography, there's a single piece of technology that you felt as though you would like to embrace that would improve your work without changing its quality, what do you think that might be?
I really can't think of it right now. I just really, really hope that photographic film and paper and chemicals stay in existence.
So actually, are you still film then, or have you moved over to digital?
I'm 100% film.
Wow.
Yeah, I work with film. I print everything myself.
I see.
In a traditional darkroom. So,
Brilliant.
this is as I say, a kind of a very interesting place for me to see all this amazing technology that I don't know what it does even.
Wow. Really interesting to talk to you, Michael. I hope that your talk tomorrow morning goes really well. Once again, it is 11 o'clock
11
in the
a.m.,
Super
yes.
Theatre.
Yes.
Terrific.
In the
Michael
Super
Kenna,
Stage.
Thank you very much indeed.
Take care. Thank you.